Jetmir Nexus of Revels has Craterhoof Behemoth levels of power, and I cannot stress to you enough how dominating that is. So let's go over what Jetmir does real quick. Jetmir Nexus of Revels is 1 a red, a green, and a white for a 5/4 legendary creature cat demon. Creatures you control get 1/0 and have vigilance as long as you control 3 or more creatures. Creatures you control also get 1/0 and have trample as long as you have 6 or more creatures. And finally, creatures you control also get 1/0 and have double strike as long as you have 9 or more creatures. Allow me to preference this real quick. Let's say you had 8 1/1 creatures, and then you played Jetmir. That's a total of 9 creatures out, so you get all the buffs off of Jetmir. Each of those 1/1s now become 4/1 double strike vigilance tramplers, and including Jetmir out getting all the buffs, that's a total of 80 points of damage, and that's just with 1/1 creatures. That's not even including any other big and powerful creatures we may have in the deck. So without further ado, let's get into the deck itself. First off, let's talk about ramp. A good chunk of the ramp is mana dorks, and these guys are going to be doing 2 things for us. First off, many of these creatures are really cheap and efficient ramp spells, and secondly, because they're creatures, they're going to be adding towards Jetmir's creature count, meaning we'll be able to get Jetmir's buffs at a much quicker rate compared to that of normal sorcery ramp spells. However, there are still some choice green sorcery ramp spells I would definitely recommend for the deck, like 3 Visits, Nature's Lore, Skyshroud Claim, and Cultivate. And what deck would be complete without Soul Ring? And some other great mana rocks are also Arcane Signet and Mana Crypt. Now, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this deck. The main course, if you will. Going wide with tokens. The goal of this deck is to get as many creatures out within a short amount of time, so that way we overwhelm our opponents with numbers and get as many buffs as we can off of Jetmir ASAP. Avenger of Zendikar is a prime example of a great go wide card. He alone has the chance to trip off all 3 of Jetmir's buffs, giving us a slew of tokens when he enters the battlefield. Release the Dogs is a great offer, giving us 4 creatures on 1 card. And in a similar vein to Avenger of Zendikar, Scampering Scorcher and Hornet Queen enter in with multiple bodies when they hit the field, with Hornet Queen being somewhat of an obstacle for our opponents, seeing how the tokens Hornet Queen creates are flying and death touch, so your opponents would be reluctant to attack you or even to block. To add redundancy to this deck, some cards that make tokens on a landfall trigger are Rampaging Ballets, Skewed Swarm, Felidar Retreat, and Emuria Angel, with Skewed Swarm being my particular favorite because if you have 6 or more lands, the token that Skewed Swarm creates is a copy of itself, making an exponential amount of tokens the more lands you play, and if you have any fetch lands in the deck, all these cards only get better. Leonin War Leader, Hero of Bladehold, Delina Wild Mage, and Krenko Tinstry Kingpin all make tokens on an attack trigger, with Delina Wild Mage having the chance to copy some of our most powerful creatures on the field. Mycoloth is also a formidable creature in a go-wide strategy. So for 3 and 2 green, we get a 4/4 Fungus with Devour 2. As this enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This creature enters the battlefield with twice that many 1/1 counters on it. So for example, if we sacrifice 2 creatures, Mycoloth would get 4 counters. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token for each 1/1 counter on Mycoloth. Mycoloth will definitely make more creatures than you sacrificed into him, unless he gets removed immediately, of course. Another great token generator, Quartzwood Crasher. Quartzwood Crasher has trample, and if any of your other creatures with trample deal combat damage to a player, you make an XX green dinosaur beast creature token with trample equal to the amount of lost life from that creature. And remember, Jetmir's secondary buff ability gives our guys 1/0 and trample, so if we're able to meet that requirement and have Quartzwood Crasher out in the field, we now have a chance to double up our army. Pretty insane. Ancient Gold Dragon is just a do-it-yourself army. If you're able to swing out once or twice with this, chances are we can swarm the field and take the game. Halo Fountain is probably one of the best utility cards in the whole deck. So not only does it create tokens, it's a card draw engine, and it's a win con all on its own. And the fact that we can untap our guys and get something out of it makes it so we can surprise block any incoming invaders. Some choice Planeswalkers that complement Jetmir are Elspeth Sun's Champion, Xenagos the Reveler, and Gorok Primal Hunter. All these Planeswalkers create tokens. Elspeth's secondary ability can be a one-sided board wipe since a lot of our creatures are low to the ground. Xenagos' primary ability is pretty much a Gaia's Cradle, and seeing how we're a go-wide strategy, we're going to be making a ton of mana. Gorok's secondary ability can draw us a ton of cards off of our biggest token-making creature, and his ultimate ability will make us a bunch of worm tokens equal to how many lands we control. These cards are nothing but helpful for the deck. March of the Multitudes, Secure the Waste, and Grand Crescendo are just instant speed armies. Keyword on instant, because that's really what makes these cards super powerful. The fact that you could play them during anybody's turn, because literally it could be one of your opponent's turns and you could say, hey, on your end step, I'm playing Secure the Waste. I'll pump 8 mana into X. And then on your turn, just play Jetmir and swing out for lethal. And probably out of these 3 cards, in my opinion, Grand Crescendo is the most powerful because it does make all of your creatures indestructible until end of turn. So you don't even have to really get the tokens out of this for it to be powerful. This can be a really good countermeasure towards someone trying to spot removal your stuff or even board wipe. And to fit in with the theme of this deck, Assemble the Legion, Outlaws Merriman, and Awakening Zone all make tokens passively on our upkeep, with Assemble the Legion being somewhat of a snowball effect, making more and more red and white soldier tokens on each of our upkeeps. And I would be remiss if I did not mention Anointed Procession and Parallel Lives. Each of these enchantments have the same effect where they double up the amount of tokens we create. Now let's go over card draw for the deck. Oran Frostfang and Toski Bearer of Secrets both have whenever a creature you control deals damage to a player, we draw a card. So the more creatures that hit our opponents, the more cards we're going to draw. Skull Clamp is an auto include in this deck. The fact that we could just kill off one of our tokens to draw 2 cards is nothing but straight gas for this deck. And Rite of Harmony can replace our hands twice over, especially if we're playing any of our big spells that make a ton of creatures in one sitting, and the fact that this has flashback is just icing on the cake. Some other good pieces of card draw for this deck are Camaraderie, Welcoming Vampire, and Shamanic Revelation. With Camaraderie and Shamanic Revelation, drawing a card for each creature we control. And Welcoming Vampire draws us a card whenever one or more creatures enter the battlefield with power 2 or less, though this ability only triggers once each turn. Moving on to Protection, we have Teferi's Protection, Heroic Intervention, and Arachnogenesis. Both Teferi's Protection and Heroic Intervention are good countermeasures toward your opponents that are trying to board wipe our stuff. And Teferi's Protection and Arachnogenesis are great for evading an all-out attack on us, with Arachnogenesis making a bunch of spider tokens equal to the amount of creatures attacking us. Another 2 great pieces of protection are Deflecting Swat and Flawless Maneuver. Deflecting Swat just changes the targets of a spell or ability, so if someone's trying to take out one of your stuff, you can take out something else instead. And Flawless Maneuver makes all your creatures indestructible until end of turn. But what really sets these cards over the edge is the fact that these can be free if your commander's out on the field. So you can literally tap out and still have a response against what your opponents have to say against you. Up next is Removal. Beast Within and Generous Gift are fantastic pieces of removal. The fact that you could destroy anything is huge. I mean, who cares if your opponent gets a 3/3? Whatever you're destroying, I'm sure is more powerful than a 3/3 token. Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile are just such efficient pieces of removal. I have to mention them here. And the little bonus that you're giving your opponent is neglectable. Some good artifact and enchantment removal are Heliod's Intervention and Force of Vigor. Heliod's Intervention destroys up to X artifacts and enchantments. Nobody gives a shit about gaining life. And Force of Vigor destroys up to 2 artifacts or enchantments, and it has the potential to be free if you exile a green card from your hand. This deck is also running 3 board wipes, which are Blasphemous Act, Vanquish the Horde, and Austere Command. Blasphemous Act and Vanquish the Horde both cost 1 less for each creature on the battlefield, and if we have a bunch of tokens that we don't mind killing off, they're going to help pay for these board wipes. An Austere Command is a cherry-picking board wipe, where we destroy whatever is most convenient for us. We also have some alternate win cons for the deck, those cards being Craterhoof Behemoth, Elish Norn Grand Cenobite, and Jazal Goldmane. Each of these cards complement a go-wide strategy, just like Jetmir. I would definitely treat Jetmir like that of a Craterhoof Behemoth, and wait to cast them until you have your established army, so that way you can do as much damage as possible. All in all, those are my thoughts on Jetmir Nexus of Rebels. I definitely think this is the closest thing to a legendary Craterhoof Behemoth that we have. But now I want to hear from you. What are some cards that you'd throw into the 99? Probably Jessica's Will, I imagine. But anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. I will catch you all in the next video.